Hey, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with Coach Zach and CJ Hunt, aka Silly C.
Yo, what's up?
Yo. I know, like when I say Coach Zach, or when Brandy's on the episode and I'm like, sweet as candy, Coach Brandy, nobody says anything. You're always like, yo. So I just wait for it. And I kind of say it in my head before you even do. I'm like programmed for it.
Got the timing.
You got the timing. How we doing today, guys?
Good.
Yeah.
It is popping here at Legacy Personal Training this week. This is the slowest week of the year for us traditionally, the week between Christmas and New Year's. I guess by the time everybody hears this, it will be January 1st or January 3rd or whatever the date is. But we always record these in a week before. So it's nice and slow here this week. Everybody's vacationing and out of town and in holiday mode, probably eating cookies and, drinking and
making poor decisions.
Making poor decisions. Go back and listen to our previous episode about, holiday health hacks if you want to, stay fit. Of course, it's probably too late by the time you hear this. So getting back on track is the name of the game. All right. This week's episode, we titled it, I got 99 problems and none of them are real. So human beings are just like designed to basically like think ahead. And we have this survival mechanism of we kind of calculate like things that could go wrong and what the negative outcomes could be. And a lot of times people end up worrying about things that aren't even like issues or that will never come to pass, right? And it's just like the survival mechanism, and people can get all the negative. It can impact their emotions, and they're freaking out about something that has never even happened, right? That's a piece of it. And then the other piece of it is like people can make excuses, which we'll talk about, for things that are like unrealistic, that may never happen, that don't even come up in their life. Right. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. And then I have, all kinds of things to rant about, but Zach, I'll go to you because, I think, even before the episode, you mentioned the excuses piece, and it's like, yeah, people just make up excuses. It's like, do you even know that that's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, they're very related, obviously, but I found that people tend to, they really stress and worry about things that like have not happened and may never actually happen. And it's just like worrying about like possible hypothetical scenarios that happen. And then when it actually comes and like nothing happened or wasn't as bad as you worried about, all you did was like waste all of that time leading up to it and being stressed and like totally screwed up for like days or whatever it is that you're leading up to, and then it happens and like everything's fine. Like if you can just like zoom out, like most of your problems like aren't like really significant problems. Like you still like go home to like your kids or whatever, and like that didn't affect anything.
Right.
Like nothing changed.
Nothing changed in your life.
Yeah. So we kind of screw ourselves up in the short term by stressing about things that we probably have no business being as worried about as we are.
Yeah. CJ, are you a worrier or a non-worrier? Like, how would you describe yourself?
I am a non-worrier.
Me too.
I look at it as kind of like useless energy.
Yeah.
You can pick the energy that you react to, and still thinking about what's going to happen is just something that doesn't do a whole lot for you. Like there's so many different outcomes. It's about like kind of staying in the moment while building towards a goal. You got to have an idea of where you're going, but it's going to take a lot of time to get there. And that's very similar to like the weight room. Not only that, but in life.
Yeah. So like I am, I guess, how would I say this? Instinctively, I'm a worrier. So there's like, this is something that I've had to work hard on to overcome in my life of like, I'm very calculated, right? Even in my personal life, in business, right? Like, sitting in a role here where I can impact people's lives by decisions that I make. Like I will I will calculate that decision, and I'll play devil's advocate, and I'll try to come up with every possible scenario, right? That's just like how my brain works. And I think about all of those things, and I have done that in my personal life. Now, I think that there's sometimes that can be good in a business aspect, but not always, right? Sometimes you're better off to just make a decision and go. But I've always been very indecisive and like very calculated. I want to think every outcome through. And I think it's my mom's fault because because when I was a kid, I was very, I had no caution, let's put it that way. And so she just kept drilling into my head over and over and over again, like, hey, you need to think about what's going to happen if you jump off that roof, beforehand. So it stuck with me. It stuck with me throughout life, but it's something that I've had to work really hard at and still have to work hard at to keep in check in my personal life and go, hey, like, this hasn't happened yet. Why am I freaking out about it? Why am I worrying about it? Everything will probably work out just fine.
Yeah. I mean, I know one thing for me is like just remembering that, I forgot. I had a really good point with it.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back right in the middle of the next thing somebody says.
Yeah. So let's talk about excuses, right? Because people make excuses for things that they're like, I don't have enough time because I have to stay at work late often. Right. And so we'll hear this a lot about workouts, right? I can't really stick to a workout routine because there are times where I have to stay at work late. It's like, okay, that hasn't even happened yet. You haven't even you started working out and you're already concerned about getting interrupted, like your workout routine getting interrupted. And there's that rant part of me wants to be like, listen, you're just never going to be successful. If that like you are quitting before you already start because of something that's never even happened, like, guess what? You're not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I think most of that stuff just comes down to like what you prioritize. Cause like most people are very busy. Most people have a whole lot of other obligations and things like that could be potential barriers to them doing like working out or whatever their like goal may be. But it's just like how you prioritize your time. There's plenty of people who are far busier than you are that still find time to like work out or do whatever it is because it's part of their schedule. And it's just something that they have decided like, hey, I have to go at like 6 a.m. because I work at 7:30 or whatever it is, right? And like, this is the only time I can do it, and I have to do it this time. So I'm just gonna like, this is my set schedule. It's just a part of the schedule. And most of that stuff falls under people like either being too hesitant to do that, or like they're just like kind of like 50-50 on it, and they haven't committed to being like, hey, it just needs to become like what I do.
Yeah,
make the decision.
Yeah,
and that's the thing is like, if you don't have a plan, right, then you plan to fail basically. And people sometimes, I think that works against them because they're trying to calculate everything down so much that they then get stifled and they can't adapt to anything. And like you're saying, hey, if something comes up and I can't work out at that time, or I'm concerned about this happening at this time, then just adapt and overcome. Like there's no reason
no margin for error like in their schedule, right? So then if something happens and it's like, oh, that's all they needed to be like, okay, well, I can't go today or whatever the situation is. Yeah,
right. So I would much rather have, when it comes to like the time thing, I'd much rather have the person that's like, hey, I'm going until all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, this came up. But at least they were planning on getting here and they weren't letting that hold them back.
And like, if we're talking about working out, like it is like been proven to improve every other aspect of your life. So if you're like so worried about work, like it's going to improve your ability to like execute
it's an investment,
at work.
Right? It's an investment of your time. You're going to be more productive.
Yeah. So like if you like, oh yeah, I'm losing an hour of work because I'm working out. Well, like in the long run, like productivity is what matters. Like you could be at work for 8 hours and if you did nothing, it means nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So like it's proven to work and benefit you in every way. So like it's something that you need to find time for.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the worrying part of this. So CJ, Zach, you guys are both naturally, just non-worriers, don't really stress about stuff. Just take it as it comes, right? Like by the moment. How do you communicate to somebody that that's something that they need to start implementing into their life? If they're like someone like me, who's like, oh man, I got to calculate everything out. I got to have all the details in place and understand every scenario.
So, well, one thing, I think the first thing that you got to see is, I know for me, one thing that I've noticed is some of the best workouts that I've written are something that I've written on the way into work or right before it happened. And that can be the same in other things. Like I've planned for this scenario and that scenario, A, B, C, D, and E, and then it doesn't happen. So you have to change right away. And that's been some of the best times that I've had, whether it's working out or whether it's just in life, having fun, is having to adapt and not go off script.
Oh, so you're saying when the pressure's on, you'll perform. And so it's like, why worry about this? Because I know when it's necessary, then I'm going to be ready.
Pressure makes diamonds or burst pipes. It's one of those.
I would say like how I like try to like explain. It's a tough thing, right, to explain to somebody. You can't really just tell them, hey, relax.
Stop, relax. Everybody loves to hear that. Just relax. You know?
I would try to like define it. Like I feel like it falls under like control. So like I don't stress about things I have no control over because I can't control the outcome of it anyway. So like, why is it worth my time to be all worried and my whole mood is ruined over something I can't control? So I don't stress about things I can't control but if I can control it, like why do I need to stress about it? Because I can control the outcome, or at least I can control my actions that can like nudge the needle the right way that I want it to go. So like it's not logical to tell somebody to never stress about anything. Stress actually is useful, but if it's something that's like a negative form of like distress, then like if we're late, right? Like this is the most common like thing. If we're late because we're like stuck in traffic, like why do I need to be stressed sitting stuck in like rush hour traffic? Because I'm not going to move anyway and I'm already late.
Guilty.
Right. Like we don't need to run because we're already late.
Yeah.
So like that's just like something I try to like, I've used myself and like I try to like tell people, but it is a tough thing to like get you to like understand. It's a very gradual process to like kind of be able to like let off like the gas a little bit of like being so worried and stressed about it, because like if you really have no control over it, then it's like there's nothing you can do anyway, so you might as well like find a way to kind of like relax a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring both of what you guys said together, right, for my own kind of thought process and what I use. So to me, stress is like when you get stressed about a situation, it's because you maybe haven't experienced it enough, or you're not confident in yourself to be able to handle that situation, right? So you're stressed about it because you're like, well, if this happens, how am I going to handle that, right? And you're not confident that you can just adapt and overcome in the moment, right? And then when it comes to pressure, I'm of the belief of like, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the highest level of your preparation, right? And so that's my outlook. So that's why I'm always like, okay, I got to be prepared. I got to think about all these things. But then I realize that when I'm like, oh, I got to prepare, that I might be over preparing for things that aren't even going to happen, or it's a lack of confidence on my part to think that I can like adapt to that. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, there's a fine line there, regardless of what the situation is. Like you could be stressed about getting to work on time. Right. And you're like, well, I got to get out the door and I got to do all these things, but you might be stressed about that because you didn't prepare the night before to have everything lined up and be able to get out of the door, set your alarm, go to bed on time, like have your breakfast made, whatever it is. And so therefore you're running late. And so there's kind of like, I think there's a fine line between like worrying about things that aren't going to happen. And then like you said, Zach, taking control over that situation.
Yeah. And like, I think, like I'm not as very like stressed person, but like I believe in being in preparation, right? So like that's kind of like what I like meant. I guess I just didn't really like explain it all the way. Like I'm prepared for pretty much every, like whatever like I'm doing. And then if whatever those like things that happen within the margins of that I'm not in control of, but I prepared like the best I could, like, well, then I'm not going to be worried about it, because I know like, yeah, like I'm still prepared to execute whatever it is. Right. So like if you had to give like a big, whatever, like speech or something like that, like a conference, and you're prepared for it, like little things are going to go wrong, like, and they most often do. But as long as you're like you might be prepared to give the speech, but you're not like prepared for whatever questions or something like that, but you're still prepared on like your base of knowledge. So like, it's not something that I would like waste my time being so stressed that it's going to hinder my performance, because if I'm like trust in my preparation, then that's all that really matters. Right. Like, so to me, like worry and stress comes from like, you don't have faith in your preparation that you put in ahead of time. Because you put in zero preparation, then like you just accept, right? Like whatever's going to happen happens because you didn't do what was necessary.
Yeah.
They can be stress, and I mean, they can be kind of go hand in hand, you know, with it being stress or whether it is something else. You just have to have the the ability to keep your goal in mind and keep sticking with that and working towards it.
Yeah, like focus on the outcome is what you're saying. Focus on the outcome and then prepare, but don't worry.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're prepared, if you're prepared and you're you know, have done everything that you can do, then then that's it, right? Like you've done everything you can do, and you're not, you know, the unexpected like comes up. Be confident in yourself to handle that at that time, but you can only do what you can do. And there's no point in worrying about all these other things that may or may not happen.
Everybody prepares differently, but just make sure that you are prepared, and then you won't have to stress.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you don't need to know every single outcome. You don't need to worry about things that may not take place. Just know kind of like where you're going and what you need to do to get there, like you said, CJ, and then the rest will take care of itself.
Yep.
That's it. All right, cool. That was it for us. We'll be back next week with more great stuff. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.